I'm just going to screen record it too. All right. Hello, everybody. We have special guest William Branum on today. For the audience that doesn't know you, please introduce yourself.
All right. My name is William Branum. I am the founder of a company called Naked War Recovery and 5 SEAL Secrets. A little bit about my background. I spent 26 years in the military. 23 of those 26 years, I was in the SEAL teams. So when I could probably answer some questions about that, but I grew up in a little town called Meridian, Mississippi, or actually outside of Meridian, Mississippi. I was heavily involved in the Boy Scouts, although I was dirt poor. Kids in high school used to call me poor white trash, which is kind of a weird thing. Growing up in Mississippi, everybody's white trash, and I think everybody's poor. Not everybody's poor, but I was a special kind of poor, like free lunches from 1st through 12th grade poor. My dad was in the Navy. He was a CB. He was retired E6. And I think he might have been the first person to tell me something about the SEAL teams, although I don't really know. I think he maybe mentioned about some guys, maybe Marines or maybe SEALs, like carrying logs up and down the beaches in Coronado, California. I always knew I wanted to be part of some sort of elite military organization, some sort of small group. I'm not really big into like big organizations, like small and nimble and agile. And so I went to a Boy Scout jamboree. Again, I was heavily involved in the Boy Scouts. I was an Eagle Scout, and I met a kid at that Boy Scout jamboree, and he had his plan for life in place. He was like, I'm going to go to the Naval Academy when I graduate high school. I'm going to fly F-14 Tomcats like the movie Top Gun, and I'm going to be a Navy SEAL. I'm like, that's cool. I want to do all that stuff. What's a Navy SEAL? And so he explained to me what a Navy SEAL was, and so I was like, oh, that's exactly what I want to do. So how do I get started? He didn't really have a good answer for me. You got to apply and you got to do this and that other stuff. And I got home, and then the Navy recruiter called me like a week later, and he's like, hey man, you ever thought about joining the Navy? And quite honestly, that's the last thing I wanted to do. I did not want to join the Navy, but you can't become a Navy SEAL unless you join the Navy. So I joined the Navy while in high school, actually the summer between my 11th and 12th grade of high school. And then after I graduated boot camp, 6 weeks later, I was off to boot camp. Or after I graduated high school, I was off to boot camp 6 weeks later, and then, failed the SEAL screening test the first time I took it. I failed it the second time I took it. I made some tactical errors. It's funny, that second time I took it, I should not have failed it. And the reason I failed it is because I became complacent. I became comfortable. I took the test with a bunch of, I was the only guy taking the test to be a SEAL. Everyone else takes the exact same test to either become a Navy diver or a Navy EOD. We all take the same test. There's just different standards. The grading criteria to become a SEAL is higher than it is for a Navy diver and it is to become a Navy EOD guy. So I beat everyone on every single event. The swim, the push-ups, the pull-ups, the sit-ups. I was faster. I was stronger. And on the 1.5 mile run, for the SEAL screening test, you run in boots and long pants. Everyone else runs in shorts and sneakers. And so I was the first one across the finish line. And I remember just sort of coasting there at the end. And when I crossed the finish line, I failed the run by like 11 seconds. Clearly, I could have passed it. Clearly, I should have passed it. But I became complacent because I was comparing myself to everyone else. I was like, oh, I'm fastest. I'm the fastest. I'm the strongest. I'm the whatever here. And I went in with the wrong mindset. So I had to go take it the third time. And then I still almost didn't get to go to BUD/S because I took a job on a Navy ship. Actually, I went to a school, which put me on a Navy ship. And apparently that job was very critical to the Navy. And so when it was time for me to, put a package in and get my orders to go to SEAL training, my detailer, the guy that is in charge of where you go and what you do and what your next job is going to be, he said, I'm not going to let you become a Navy SEAL because you're too critical to the Navy because of that job you did that you're doing on that ship. And I said, but I didn't join the Navy to be on the ship. I joined the Navy to become a Navy SEAL. And he said, sorry, bro. I'm not going to let you become a Navy SEAL. And so I did everything I could to, go around that one person that was in my way. And eventually the chief of naval operations, who is the most senior person in the Navy, came to my ship in Yokosuka, Japan, had CNO's call and said, does anyone have any questions, after he gave his whole vision of the future of the Navy and the Pacific and all this other stuff. And I raised my hand and I said, yeah, I joined the Navy to become a Navy SEAL. I think I deserve a chance to go, but my detailer says I'm too critical to the Navy and he won't let me go. What do you think? He turns to my commanding officer and he says, is he a good guy? Well, I happen to be the sailor of the quarter that quarter. He said, yeah, he was a sailor of the quarter this quarter, which is like employee of the month, because I did a good job sweeping floors or mopping or shining, brass or stuff like that. And he turns back to me. He's like, check, you'll be in the first class after your PRD, which is planned rotational date. 6 weeks later, I'm off to California to start SEAL training.
So in terms of SEAL training, you mean like Hell Week or?
No. So SEAL training is 26 weeks of, it's broken up into 4 phases. So the first phase, or the fourth phase, it was called fourth phase or PTR when I got there. They keep changing the names because I don't know, they just keep changing the names. But the fourth phase is actually sort of a holding phase. It's designed to either for guys to show up and get 2 workouts in a day, something, calisthenics and some kind of running or swimming, 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon, to get you prepared to start SEAL training. So you're there just waiting for enough people to show up so they can start the next class. It's also there for when people get hurt, they get rolled back and they put in this holding facility waiting for the next class to either, if it was pre-Hell Week that you got hurt, you're just waiting for the next class or 2 classes to get there and start training, start day 1 of BUDS so that you can join them and then make it, through the rest of training. If you're hurt either, post-Hell Week or sometime during second or third phase, then they pull you back into that holding facility or, something like that. You can also fail events and get pulled back into, kicked out of your class and then put in that holding facility. They weren't big on kicking people out of SEAL training when I was going through. However, they did almost kick me out until I told the story. I was like standing there crying on crutches, with big snot bubbles and tears coming down my face, saying, if you kick me out of SEAL training, I may never get a chance to come back because of this school that I went to once upon a time. So SEAL training so the fourth phase is that holding phase. The first phase is like that break you down phase, and Hell Week is part of that first phase of training. The second phase of training is called dive phase, where you learn how to, scuba dive, and then you go through really the hardest evolution of BUDS, which is, it's like, I call it underwater jujitsu, but you don't get to fight back, where you're swimming along the bottom of the pool or crawling along the bottom of the pool. You're wearing this double hose regulator, Jacques Cousteau style, and the instructors swim down and they punch you in the gut. They rip your mask off. They tie your hoses in knots, and then you have to untie the hoses and go through the proper procedures to fix the problem until there's a final knot that you can't untie. They call that the whammy knot. And then there's a procedure that you go through to pass that evolution. A lot of guys fail that evolution. A lot of guys, most guys that I know, there's only a handful of guys I know that liked that evolution. Almost all of us say that was harder than BUDS or harder than Hell Week. We'll go to Hell Week again and not have to do that 20 minutes of crawling underwater, getting punched and hoses tied in knots. That was the worst thing. And then the third phase of training is the land warfare training, where you learn to shoot, you learn how to move, and learn how to communicate, and learn the small unit tactics of a basic infantryman. Probably maybe slightly more complex than a basic infantryman, like throwing grenades and doing demolition charges and things like that, but not much more. And then you don't learn how to actually be a Navy SEAL until you get to the SEAL teams, or you go to SEAL. Now they call it SEAL qualification training, SQT, which is directly after BUDS. You learn some more advanced tactics. Then you have the skill set to become a Navy SEAL. Then you go to the team, you get your trident, and you do your first workup with the platoon. You deploy. Then then you're actually a Navy SEAL.
So what exactly? And I just want to, with regards to the water section that you said was so difficult to the point of you wanting to Hell Week again. What exactly was so difficult about it? Was it the fear? Was it the stress? Like what part of it was so difficult?
It's the being completely out of control. I mean, you have to be in control of your breath. So the instructors, you're crawling across the bottom of the pool, and they see you take the breath in, and if they're kind, they'll let you take a good long breath in. And I would see them like come down, and you could see them in your peripheral vision, and they're ready to grab your hose, and I'm just holding on to my hose, going as big a breath as I can. And then I move my hand and they take the hose and they tie it in knots and do all this other stuff. And I'm already out of breath by the time they're done tying my hoses in knots. Now I got to untie these things. I got to go through the procedures perfectly. If you mess up even one procedure, you failed the evolution. And so it was that don't fail the evolution, don't fail the evolution, don't fail the evolution. I failed it the first time because I did things out of order. I knew the right thing to do. I just couldn't reach. So you have an inhalation hose and an exhalation hose. So obviously the inhalation hose is where air comes from the tank and into your mouth. Exhalation, it goes out of your mouth through a different hose and then out through the back regulator. Well, you're not supposed to take your gear off if you have an exhalation problem. I knew it was an exhalation problem. I just couldn't reach the hose. And so I started to take my gear off to like just enough so I could reach the hose. And so I failed it. So rather than letting me just continue, they're like, well, you failed it because you were out of procedures. Yeah, I know I was out of procedures. I just couldn't reach the problem. So I had to figure it out myself. So, but anyway, like I'm out of air. I'm already like, by the time, you know, they're still tying my hoses in knots. And I'm like, fuck, dude, I need to breathe all of a sudden. I need to breathe like before you even started. So, you know, they have the stress of the evolution. You have to hold your breath under that stress. You're crawling along. You have to do everything picture perfect or you fail.
So,
and if you fail it more than twice, you get kicked out.
Yeah. So to clarify, you don't have to hold your breath. Do you have to hold your breath the entire time? Or are you like, how does that?
So the last part of it. So you have to hold your breath when you don't have any air in your mouth. When your hoses are tied in knots, you're holding your breath. When you're crawling along the bottom, you're breathing off the compressed air. So you take that breath, they tie your hoses in knots. And so the last knot that they tie is called the whammy knot. It's a knot that you can't get untied. And so at some point you realize I can't get this knot untied. And then you have to go through these other procedures of asking permission to go to the surface. You ask and they say, yes, you can come up, but you have to there's still more procedures to do. And you can be completely out of air and ready to breathe, but that's okay. You still got to stay down there and do the procedures. So then you take all of your equipment off, you lay it on the bottom of the pool, you have your weight belt across your legs, you bring your weight belt back across your tanks and your life jacket, and then you give the okay to the instructor. They give you the okay back. Then you put your lips on the bottom of the pool, you kiss the bottom of the pool, you exhale all the air out of your lungs, and they bring you to the surface. You don't bolt to the surface or you fail. You go control to the surface, and they're punching you in the stomach on the way up to make sure you don't have any air in your lungs, because one of the worst things that you can do when you're scuba diving is hold your breath, take compressed air into your lungs, hold your breath, and then go to the surface. Your lungs will explode. The air bubbles in your veins, in your arteries, they will explode, and that'll ruin your day.
Right, yeah, due to the air pressure.
Right, because the air expands as it goes up.
Right, yeah, that's common knowledge when it comes to scuba diving, is that you're not supposed to come up either too fast or... I didn't know about the holding of the breath part, but that is very interesting. So when you were in the SEALs, what types of jobs did you do? And how does the daily basis of an Navy SEAL work?
I think the daily, to me, it's like it's an everyday thing, like how everyone else works. But since I've been a civilian, I realize that's not actually true. I mean, it's kind of like a 9-to-5 job, except it's like a 6-to-6 job on a regular school day. Get up at 5, show up at work at 6. We have our first meeting, then we go work out for a couple hours. Then it's, business as usual, planning stuff, getting ready for the next trip, deploying. If we're on the road, we're getting up early, we're training all day, or maybe we're sleeping in because we trained, worked until 2 or 3, 4 o'clock in the morning the night before. Maybe get up at noon, get a workout in, go, practice the skills that we're on that trip to practice, get better at those skills. And then when we come back, go back, immerse in with our family and things like that. But, when you're on the road, you're on the road and you're there to train. And that's what we do, is we get on the road and we train. We train harder than pretty much anyone else on the planet when we do that.
Well, this goes to actually a question that I wanted to ask you about. And it's something I wanted to ask about Stephen when I did my interview with him, which was that in your day-to-day life, day-to-day basis, right? Is there anything like a habit or a behavioral pattern or just behavior that you got specifically from being a SEAL?
I think the things that I got from being a SEAL was I didn't really enjoy getting up early and going in and working out and doing all that other stuff because I had to do it. Now that I'm a civilian, I don't have to do anything, but I want to do it. I want to get up and I want to go work out. I want to get up early and go attack today. I want to get up early and go crush whatever's in front of me. If I don't have that attitude when I wake up, I just get up and do it anyway. But I want to do it because I want to be better. I want to be better now than I was in the SEAL teams. And I can guarantee you that I am better now because I want to do it than when I was in the SEAL teams. I am in better shape. I am faster. I am stronger. I have more life experience. I have more business experience. I have more everything. If I were to go back to the SEAL teams right now, I would definitely go through BUDS again right now and become a Navy SEAL, and I would be an even better SEAL than I was when I was there, when I was in the first time.
So the fact that you want to do it is why you would do better, correct?
100%. Like, I want to be better. And that was something that we push in the SEAL teams. I just took it for granted. I'm surrounded by A-type, high-level performers every single day. And then I got out and I wasn't. There's not a lot of A-type, high-level performers out here in the civilian world. Actually, there are. They're just hard to find. They're just not everywhere. They're not surrounded by you every day. And so in the teams, we're always competing against one another, either personally or between the platoons or task units or one team to the other, East Coast versus West Coast. It doesn't matter. We're always competing. We're always trying to be better. That competition doesn't really exist out here in the civilian world. So you have to go out and create that competition. You have to create personal hardships to make you better, to make you more hungry, to make you want it more. Because it's very easy. There's such a big entitlement mentality going on now that I actually pay attention to the news and the messages that are being shown to people. Fuck entitlement. Go out there and fucking earn something. Go do really hard shit. Go crush your own soul. If you don't want to crush your own soul, hire someone to crush your soul for you. They'll be happy to do it. You'll be a better person on the other side of that.
Would there be any methods of doing that you could recommend, like to a normal civilian without joining the military?
There's a ton of organizations out there that, put men and women through really hard things. I'm a part of a couple of them. One of them is called the Modern Day Night Project. It's specifically for men. I'm a part of an organization called Man-Made, specifically for men. Like, last year we went and hiked the Grand Canyon twice. We've done a couple of Muskogee, like 27-hour, very hard workout. However, there's a lot of working out and a lot of classroom that takes place. I'm working with some women to put together a women's only program. And I also work with an organization connected with the Modern Day Night with Bedros Keuilian to do another program called the Muskogee out in Temecula, California, where it's men and women, where we run them through 12 hours of really hard physical activity, really pushing them to their limits, then going and do some classroom work. And then pushing them some more and do some more classroom work. And then pushing some more and do some more classroom work. And then finish off with, 10 minutes of ice bath or something like that. But there's a ton of programs out there. If people are interested, they can just reach out to me and I can point them in a direction.
So in terms of what you would recommend young people, generally speaking, more young men, what would you recommend them do?
I would either get a hold of Man-Made. I think their website is manmadetribe.com, or the Modern Day Project. They're two very different programs, but I would say reach out and figure out which one is right for you. Which one do you think is right for you? They're very different price points as well. Or, some sort of Muskogee thing. You could just go out and, do something really hard. So the first time we hiked the Grand Canyon, we had a gentleman who wrote The Comfort Crisis. I believe his name is Michael Easter. Come out. We paid him to, kind of talk to us after the event. He went and tried to run the Grand Canyon as his own Muskogee challenge. And he says there's a couple rules with doing a Muskogee. One, there's a 50% chance that you're not going to make it. Rule number 2 is you're not allowed to die. So what we found, and what I found in the SEAL teams, I found in civilian life, I found in doing all these hard things, is you can push your body so much further than what you think you can. You can put forth more effort than you think you can. Sometimes maybe you just need a little more nutrition. You need a little more fuel. You need a little more whatever. But as long as you have this desire to continue moving forward, you can keep moving forward.
Right. So that also leads me to my next question, which is in terms of the biggest lesson that you learned from being a SEAL, right? What was that? What did you take away the most from being a former SEAL or now being a former SEAL?
I thought about this question a lot, and that I think that's actually the answer I came back with was you're so much more capable than what you believe that you are. And I learned that in SEAL training. I've learned it in the SEAL teams. I've learned it since I've been out. You're so much more capable, but you only learn that by going and doing really hard things. There were a couple other things I was thinking, trying to think about as far as like sort of the biggest lesson learned. But I think that's one of the things I think is, for me was I really like being the underdog. I like when people underestimate me. I like when people say, I can't do it. You can't do it because that's impossible. Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to go do that. Whatever it is, from becoming a Navy SEAL, starting a business, starting 2 businesses, getting on a TED Talk. It doesn't matter what it is. If you tell me it's impossible, I'm going to go conquer that mountain, no matter what it takes.
Yeah, I mean, that's an incredible mindset to have, and it's something that people need to hear a lot more of. Unfortunately, we don't hear a lot of it nowadays. And in terms of your TED Talk, talk a little bit more about that. What did you? I watched it, but for the audience that hasn't watched it, what did you speak about?
So that's a great question, and I do public speaking, as one of the many things that I do for a living now, and that was not my best speaking appearance, but it wasn't terrible. It was all right. And I have a bunch of lessons learned from that talk. But I talked about, life transitions. We all go through life transitions. I went through a life transition. I went through many. One of them was when I got divorced. One of them was when I retired from the SEAL teams. One of them was having a kid, moving from Virginia to California, moving from California to Hawaii. All of these things are life transitions, and we all go through them. And the thing that you need to do during a life transition is you need to plan what you're going to do, what you want to do, who you want to become, or where you want to go. And then write down what that is, and then make a plan. Talk about your plan to people who you trust, get their feedback. And then what you have to do is you have to go do a dirt dive. A dirt dive is basically a rehearsal of the mission, a rehearsal of this transition that you're going to go do. Ask yourself, what if during this dirt dive? Find things that are not going to hold you back, or find things that are going to be obstacles that you're going to face, and then figure out ways that you're going to get around those obstacles before you actually face them. And the more times you ask yourself, what if during a dirt dive, no matter what they are, the more prepared you're going to be to go through that life transition. You're going to be more prepared for facing hardship because you're already going to have thought about it. You're going to have visualized like facing that hardship, what the outcome is going to be, good or bad, and then how you're going to deal with that outcome. And that was really the foundation of my TED Talk, without getting into a big dissertation about it.
So generally speaking, to challenge yourself and find yourself through challenges.
Plan. Make a plan and then practice the plan.
Right. So when you see, and this is about the general topic of challenging yourself, like you said, making a plan and finding yourself in some cases through challenges. So where, or what rather, would you say to the majority of young people nowadays who, and it's the same question I asked Steven, and I want to ask you this too. It's what would you recommend young people nowadays, especially those who seem that they can't find it within themselves to get out in the world and do something, especially what they want to do. And every day they wake up and it's a chore to eat, like to even wake up for them, right? Like, what would you say to those people? What would you recommend those people, especially those that are extremely young?
Number one, I would say stop being a victim. But number two, I would say I recognize that it's hard to get up. My entire family knows that I hate getting up in the morning. So I talked to a young man the other day. He's like, I'm trying to, get up at 6 a.m., but I can't ever, I keep hitting the snooze button and I keep, and I eventually wake up at 8 a.m. and get out of bed. I'm like, okay, that's fine. Set your alarm for 7:30 and get up at 7:30. Oh, is that too early? Set your alarm for 7:45. Create small victories. Do something that you can do. You're only asking yourself to wake up 15 minutes early. You're actually giving yourself permission right now from what you're currently lying to yourself saying that you want to get up at 6 a.m. You don't want to get up at 6 a.m. If you did, you would get up. So go ahead and give yourself the grace and get up at 7:45. Set your alarm for 7:45. That's not 8 o'clock. That's before 8 o'clock. Good. When you get really good at getting up at 7:45, set your alarm to 7:30. Do that for a month. And then maybe 7:15. Be a little bit uncomfortable. Today, I think young people are very comfortable because they've never had to suffer. There's, participation trophies. Which I understand the reason for it for very, very young people, but it doesn't drive competition. It doesn't drive you to want more. My daughter does not want to compete. At least that's what she tells me. She's 10 years old. That is a lie. She loves to compete. She hates to lose. She wants to fight me. She wants to compete with me, and she wants to win. That's okay. I'll let her win occasionally. Most of the time, I'm going to keep her down because I want her to stay hungry. I want her to want to win. And then every now and then I'll throw her a bone and let her beat me at something just to keep her a little bit. Oh, that's what it's like. She's not always losing. She'll win 1 out of 100. So, but if you want to be great as a young person, you want to do hard things, I would say if you want to go to college, go to college. I don't think it's a requirement. I have a PhD, a public high school diploma, and I have 26 years in the SEAL teams, in the military. I have 2 businesses. I travel around the world. I do all right for myself for someone who who never went to college. I think that dream of college is, unless you're going to be something very specific in a profession, doctor, lawyer, or something like that, go to college for that. Architect, go to college for that. I have coaching clients that are architects. They're not that happy with what they do. They don't make that much money. I make more money than they do. They actually pay me. So think about that. Think about going out and getting life skills. Go out and do something that is going to teach you a trade that you can do better than anyone else. When you can do one thing better than anyone else in that field, you're going to win. There's nothing that's going to stop you other than you.
So when it comes to people that, let's say that, for example, their issue is that they have a lack of motivation, right? Which is a very big part of it, right? A lot of very young men, even people that I've seen, a lot of them say that the issue is that they're depressed, that they lack motivation. What would you say to those young men?
Get up and move. Stop making excuses. Stop being a victim. There's a TED Talk where I think the guy, I'm going to mess this up a little bit. I should look up his name, but I think he came from a very well-off Chinese family. And his next role was to take over the family business. And he saw that his family, his dad, his brother, his uncle, whoever, the people who were part of the company were not happy. They were always stressed out and things weren't going that well for them. And so he decided, he was like, you know what? Screw the business. If I want it, I can come back, but I'm going to go be a monk and go figure that thing out. And there's a TED Talk where he's standing on stage in his whole robe and beads and all that other stuff. And he talks about the Spartans. And he said, do you think that they were depressed? Or some other group of warriors, do you think they were depressed? No, they weren't depressed. They were too busy fighting battles. They were too busy getting out there and moving their body and doing hard things. When you have a mission and you have a purpose, you're not going to be depressed. Like, you might get down on yourself because you didn't reach that goal fast enough. That's okay. You learn some lessons along the way. Keep going and attacking that. Keep going and attacking those goals. That's how you get better. That's how you kill the depression. You have to get up and you have to move. You have to have a purpose in life. Figure out what your purpose is. Go out there and fail. Fall on your face. If you're not failing, you're not trying hard enough. Failure is a blessing. Failure is a gift. I look at failure as a gift. Let me fucking fail again. I love it. No, I fucking hate failure. I hate failure. I hate failing, but I love failure. Get out there and fail. If you're not failing, you're not trying hard enough. That means you're being too lazy. That means you're afraid to be uncomfortable. Be uncomfortable. Start working out. Stop eating Cheetos and Ho-Hos and Twinkies and all that crap. Stop poisoning your body. Stop watching porn. Go out there and date women. I talk to so many, even women nearly my age, that have a hard time finding good, strong, alpha, athletic men. They want strong, alpha men who can take care of them. That's what they want. And they're good-looking women. And they want a good man that they can feel protected by. They can protect themselves. They're badasses. I only surround myself with badass people. They're badasses. And that's what they're looking for. And I'm sure the young women of today want that. They want a badass man who they can rely on, who can protect them if the shit hits the fan. If the zombie apocalypse hits tomorrow, I've had a lot of women say this to me. If the zombie apocalypse hits tomorrow, I want someone who can take care of me. Are you going to be that man that can take care of that woman? Are you going to be dependable? Are you going to be strong? Are you going to know how to use weapons? Are you going to know how to defend yourself? Are you know how to survive? Are you going to know how to make money? Go do that stuff for you. And if you're like so addicted to porn that you can't put it down, maybe go get a tattoo on your hand and look at that thing every time you're ready to take care of business. Put the phone away. Put the dating app away. Go out and talk to people. Get out of your fucking mom's basement. Go do hard things. Go be a man. A little soapbox there.
Will do. I'll make sure.
I wasn't talking specifically to you. I was talking to all men.
I know. It felt really inspiring, though. Felt like you were talking specifically to me. And I already do most of those things anyway, so. But, no, but,
apparently I can get motivated. I can get carried away. And that's okay. Because that's part of greatness.
When you can do a speech like that and it means something, that's how you know that you know what you're talking about.
I give a shit.
Yeah, that's good. It's better than the alternative. So switching gears a little bit, and in terms of the more specific things in your career that you did. So you and I spoke a little bit about this. You pulled off a mission of hunting terrorists in, I believe, Iraq to protect the interim, which is, I believe, another term for transitioning, temporary Iraq government. So what was this? How did this work? How did this happen? Where did this come from? Just tell us the story.
Sure. So this was a presidential directive that came down where the Iraqis elected an interim government. These were all elected officials. And so in order to protect, I'm going to use air quotes here, protect democracy in Iraq, we were deployed. The SEAL teams were deployed. We were hunting bad guys. We were probably 4 terrorist cells away from Zarqawi at the time. We got a new mission while deployed. Hey, go start protecting the interim government in Iraq. You're going to work for the State Department. You're going to do these things, and they're going to provide you equipment and protection and money and all this other stuff. So our new mission became keep the government of Iraq leadership alive. Do not let them die. Do not let the terrorists come in and disrupt the democracy that we are trying to create as the United States of America. So we stopped hunting bad guys and we moved to Baghdad, and there was 8. It wasn't all the SEAL platoons, but I think it was 8 SEAL platoons, 8 or 9 SEAL platoons were pulled off of missions of hunting bad guys, shoved into Baghdad to go figure out how to, one platoon was, the president. One platoon was a prime minister, vice president, other vice president, some other official, this other official. These higher ranking officials of the interim government. Our job was to keep them alive. And I'll tell you that was one of the hardest, scariest times. You know, doing missions at night vision goggles, surprising the enemy, using intel, all this other stuff. They're pretty hard, but they're also pretty fun. It's the stuff that you hear about on TV. You watch movies about and things like that. Doing this other job where you know it's a guess every single day when you're going out into somewhere, nowhere land, Iraq, and you just find yourself in a mob of people, and your job is to keep that that person alive that's no longer by your side, that you no longer have control of, and then the people are not that friendly with you. And there's people all around with guns and maybe someone with a bomb, and you have no idea. That was really some of the scariest stuff I ever did over in Iraq, was trying to keep some of those people alive and being in mosh pits of people with just me and one or two other guys. The rest of the platoon is in their armored vehicles, and I'm trying to talk to them over radios. You can't hear them. We can't communicate that well. I want them to line vehicles up and get them to a certain position, because I think I see the end in sight, but I don't really know, and I don't speak Arabic. And yeah, and then people are like giving me the thumbs down because they don't like me, or like showing me the sole of their shoe because they don't like Americans, and that's a major insult over there. And I'm just wondering who's going to try to shoot me and who I'm going to have to kill. That was actually some of the scariest times in Iraq, was daytime operations, hanging out there like a sore thumb. Not cool.
So were you just dressed in typical like attire, like U.S. military attire, or?
No, we were wearing civilian clothes, but it was like, first generation of 511 tactical clothing. They were not very good back then. All the pants shrunk, and the shirts were not comfortable. They've gotten better, but I hope to never wear another piece of 511 attire again, unless they pay me a lot of money to do it. And I don't feel like they're going to, because I talk bad about them enough. But I mean, I'm happy. I think they, when I see people wearing 511 now, I'm like, okay, you want to be cool. And I think that's not cool, but whatever. I mean, people say the same thing about me. I want to be cool because of some of the stuff that I do, some of the things I post on Instagram or LinkedIn or whatever. Most of my haters are from TikTok and Instagram, which is fine. I love the haters because they drive the algorithm. Keep hating, bro. I actually am making money because you're hating. So keep it up.
You should start doing what David Goggins would do. And he reads out his hate comments, records them, and then while he goes for runs or workouts, he listens to them.
Oh, I don't need to do that.
Or you could save the videos of people on TikTok.
I actually reply to them with kindness. Hey, how about trying to be, compete in kindness, compete in gratitude, compete in generosity, rather than being a keyboard warrior and hating on people? Like, what's the point of that? Do you feel better now that you made a comment with your blacked out, private Instagram account, talking shit about someone that you don't know anything about off of a 30-second video of the content you don't actually know? Those are generally my responses.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely unfortunate, especially considering that, and this was with all celebrities and just people, I guess, of interest. And I always note, and I always think about that, where it's like, we see it all the time on the news, like, oh, this guy did X thing, but it's like you're judging a guy off of one moment of their life. It's like that probably doesn't even represent 0.1% of who they are, and it's not right, and it's something that people need to stop doing. But it's unfortunate.
I had a comment today. It was awesome. It was like a guy got on my. He didn't comment on the main post that gets a lot of attention, like one that has, it's like, I don't know, a lot of comments. I didn't know I got all the comments because there was just so many in there. But he commented on another post. He was like, shame on you for using your military status to try to make money. Really? Tell me about that. Why is that important? Why is that a big deal? He's like, greed. You're saying I'm greedy. So why is no one calling out, professional athletes? Why is no one calling out retired athletes? No one's calling out doctors, lawyers, accountants, or anyone else that has a title, has a background, has a history of high performance, to not use that to make money. The Navy is no longer paying my bills. The Navy no longer serves me. I served the Navy for 26 years. They no longer serve me. So why should I not use what I've learned and share the information that I learned in the SEAL teams, as long as I'm not sharing any classified information, talking about any classified missions? If I'm only talking about mindset, if I'm talking about lessons learned, hey, I used this came in really handy here, you can use this in everyday life. Being a sniper, I talk about make bold adjustments in your life. And the analogy that I pull from when I do that, I talk about when I was a sniper instructor, you would think that every Navy SEAL knew how to sight their weapon in. That is not true. Some guys are good at demolition. Some guys are good at sighting their weapon in. Some guys are good at shooting. Some guys are good at other things. I'm good at shooting. I'm good at, that's why I became a sniper and a sniper instructor. And when I got back to the team, you have guys that go do desk jobs and they come back to the platoon and they go away and do training and they come back to the platoon. They may or may not know how to, sight their gun in. They get a new gun, new weapon system, new sight optics and things like that. And I'll see them. Usually it's some of the leadership, and they'll be shooting and they'll make some small adjustments and they'll shooting just like trying to sight their weapon in. And the bullets stay on like one side of the target. And they're like getting upset because they're not making any effective changes to their optics. So I'll go over and I'll ask them if I can see their weapon, and I'll just make like these ridiculous corrections to their optic, and I'll hand it back to them and say, okay, go ahead and shoot. And they're like, bro, you broke my sights. You broke my ACOG or whatever it was. And I'll say, just do me a favor, just take a few shots and let's see where you are. And so what happens is the impacts move all the way across the paper to the other side of the bullseye, but they're closer to the bullseye. And now they're able to make those small adjustments to get on or get in to the bullseye. Sometimes in life, if you're just doing these small, minor adjustments and you're not seeing any major change happen to you, it's because you're doing small adjustments. Do big, bold adjustments in your life. Tim Ferriss talked about sometimes you just have to do the opposite. Do the opposite of what everyone else is doing. And that's the right thing to do. Because Charlie Munger, who recently died, who's Warren Buffett's, right-hand man, or was, he and Warren said something like, when people are greedy, when people are scared, be greedy. And when people are greedy, be scared. Do the opposite of what everyone else is doing. When we talked on the phone, I told you that there's a company out there that's threatening to sue me. It's actually, I thought it was Pepsi. It's actually not. It was I dug a little bit deeper. Pepsi owned a brand from this company. So this company is a standalone company now. They're called Naked Way. And their attorneys are trying to sue me for trademark infringement, using the word naked for Naked Warrior Recovery. I want them to come after me. Please, please, please come after me. Because I'm going to turn that into a very big marketing campaign for me. Most people will be like, oh, cease and desist. You're a scary lawyer. I don't want any law problems. I don't want any attorney problems. I don't want to go to court. Take me to court. I'm ready for combat every day. Let's fucking go. That's the mindset you have to have. That's the mindset that you have to have in order to dominate everything you do in life. I have my own opinions about Goggins, but one of the things I do like about Goggins is that's his mindset. That's his attitude. He's like, fuck everybody else. That is also my problem with Goggins, is he says, fuck everybody else. He didn't get where he is today on his own. He has a team. He didn't get through BUDS by himself. He had a team. He had instructors. He got to the SEAL teams. Whatever. He didn't do anything in the SEAL teams. That's fine. I don't care about that. I like what he's doing now. I like the fact that he's fuck the haters. Go out and do something hard. Go out and have unrealistic expectations of yourself. Set unrealistic goals and then go fucking conquer them and make bigger goals. I like that. Go do that.
When it comes to, and this is speaking about Goggins and another former SEAL, Jocko Willing, that we spoke a little bit about, that and when it comes to a lot of these figures, especially online, that talk about what it means to be a man, masculinity, and such. What are your thoughts on them?
On Jocko, on Goggins,
Well,
on
well, I'm saying like very generally speaking, like you have a lot of people that will talk about either what it means to be a good person, a man, etc. Like Goggins, Jordan Peterson, Jocko Willink. Like you get all these different figures. So I was like, what are your thoughts on those?
I think we need more men out there saying that more men need to be more masculine. Because there is, if you look at mainstream media, if you look at social media, if you look at almost any media out there, they're all telling you that, you know, I talked to a guy the other day. He was like, I work for this company and I make good money, but I have to sit through these DEI classes. And if I have a problem with what they say, then all of a sudden it's my white fragility. What? So you're reverse discrimination. It's all fucking racism. Stop fucking talking about it and it goes away. But more men need to be men. More men need to be masculine. Oh, you need to be transgender. You're not in touch with your feet. Like if you're, no, fuck that. Be a fucking man. If you want to cross dress, go cross dress. I don't care. You're not going into the bathroom with my daughter. I will whip your ass. Men are supposed to be protectors and providers, hunters, gatherers. That's why we do the hard things. That's why we're mostly firemen, why we're mostly military, why we excel in the workforce. Yes, there's some fucking badass women out there that can do the same similar stuff that we can. Very similar. Like there's some UFC chicks that I would not get in the ring and fight. They would whoop my ass. That's okay. They're really good at that. I'm going to be really good at some other stuff. They are the 0.0000001%. Stop pandering to mediocrity. Go out there and be masculine. There's this thing about toxic masculinity. There's no such thing as toxic masculinity. Toxic masculinity is weak men lacking masculinity. There's toxic people, there's toxic men, and there are toxic women. They are generally weak people, weak-minded. They're not strong. They don't have a good heart. Masculinity is compassion. Masculinity is strength. Masculinity is taking care of other people. Masculinity is service. Go be masculine and be the most masculine man you can possibly be. My 2 cents.
Completely fair. And I absolutely will do so. But on a more relaxed note, and in terms of what
you're gonna try to get me to relax.
Well, no, I'm not trying to get you relaxed. Well, actually, you already got yourself to relax with CBD. That's what I was going to talk about next.
I got you.
But yeah, so CBD. So I visited your website, nw-recovery.com, which everybody should now go visit. So I believe it's the biography section about you, and it's about how you suffered a lot of injuries and I guess issues after joining the SEALs, as a lot of people do after military service. And you self-medicated with alcohol for a time. You had all these different struggles. And then eventually you came across CBD oil, THC free to be more specific, CBD oil. And you decided that you would get into it and see what it would do for you. So what was your story with that? How did that work? How did that come about?
Yeah, so I'd heard about CBD is pretty mainstream nowadays, but back in the day it wasn't. And I think I'd heard about CBD before it was actually legal through the Farm Bill of 2018. So I'd heard about it. People talked about it on podcasts. I stopped listening to the radio. I started listening to podcasts, I don't know, probably 2017 or so, on the way to work. And I remember a guy talking about, there's this, everyone knows about THC, and the medicinal benefits of it. But there's also this other molecule that helps with stress, anxiety, certain kinds of childhood epilepsy, sleep disorders, chronic inflammation, all these other things. And I was like, and he's like, and it's called CBD. And I remember I'm driving down the road and I pulled out my notebook and I wrote down the letter CBD. And then I started doing research on it. Well, it comes from the cannabis plant. And I'm like, oh, I'm in the military. I have a top secret clearance. I can't screw around with that. So I didn't. I retired in 2018. I was still afraid to try CBD. Fast forward to the spring of 2019. I was in Virginia. I was having lunch with a friend of mine. And I said, I think when I finish here, I'm going to go find a store that sells CBD because maybe what you have here in Virginia is better than what we have in Hawaii. He's like, oh, if you want CBD, I've got some at home. He's kind of a Instagram. He was a kind of an Instagram influencer. He's got a jillion followers now, but back then it was, companies would just send him stuff. And so they sent him a bunch of CBD products. He gave me a bottle. I tried it. I didn't notice anything while I was taking it. What I did notice over time after I ran out was things that used to bother me, things that stopped bothering me, started bothering me again. And so I couldn't figure out why. And I also noticed that my drinking went way down. And so I tried it. I was like, maybe it was the CBD, maybe not. Because I didn't notice anything happening. What I noticed is things after I stopped taking it. And then I said, well, maybe let me try a different brand. I bought a different brand online, similar results. I'm like, I want to be in the CBD industry. And then I went to a conference, a business conference, and I met a girl in the CBD industry, and I wanted her to hire me because I was missing my team, my mission, my purpose, all that stuff after retiring from the military. I was lost. And that's why I talk like, men, you need to go figure out what your purpose is. Go out there and fail a bunch of times. But I didn't know that at the time. I didn't realize that at the time. I had to go through and have my own failures to realize how to get there, how to figure out what your mission and your purpose is. So I was like, okay, I think CBD is my new mission and my purpose. And maybe this girl that sells CBD will be on my team. And so actually I wanted to be on her team. So I was like, hey, I want to do CBD. Like, can you hire me or something? I don't remember the conversation. And she said, well, do you want to do A to B, B to B, or B to C? And I was like, I don't know what those letters mean. I want to do C, B, D. So she said, you are a Navy SEAL. Well, first she said, well, why don't you just go start your own CBD company? And I said, I don't know how to do that. And she leaned in and she said, you are a Navy SEAL. You can figure it out. So I politely asked her for my man card back, not to give that up again. And I went home and I Googled how to start a CBD company. I found out that most of the industry was very corrupt and dirty because it was pretty new as far as, being federally approved. And, there were, like most products on the market, had high levels of mercury, lead, arsenic, things like that. High levels of THC, no CBD at all, no oil in it at all, other than maybe a hemp oil or an olive oil or an MCT oil. So I went out and found the highest quality suppliers in the market, and I partnered with them. And so to date, we are still the highest quality product on the market. Other brands that you may have come across, have raised their standards to the level of my suppliers' standards. So now my suppliers drove the standard for the industry. So we were some of the first to do it. And then, now everyone is following our lead. Everyone is saying, we have this, we're the best. We're the only certified organic CBD oil on the planet. Well, they're not. We were first, and then they followed suit.
So when you say the best, like on the market, right, is that lab tested, or are you just saying that because you want to advertise the product?
It's quality. So just to give you an example. So most of the bigger companies out there, they would extract the oil from the plant. They would test the oil and then turn it into whatever it is, whatever product they were going to turn it into. They made sure that the oil was, didn't have any mold or, from the plant. It didn't have any, heavy metals or pesticides or things like that. And then they would turn it into a product. They would never test it again. My suppliers, they tested on the front side, turned it into whatever product it was going to be, a tincture, a gummy, a topical, a soft gel, a little pill, whatever it was, an energy drink, and then test the final product. Testing the final product is key for a couple of reasons. Number one, to make sure there were no discrepancies or no contamination during the manufacturing process. Number two, to make sure the product actually has what we say it has in it. So our standards are, it has to have at least, let's just say that, per dropper of a tincture has to have at least 25 milligrams of CBD per dropper. Most of them have 28, 32, significantly more CBD per dropper, because we want to make sure you get at least what we say and hopefully a little bit more. Our gummies have at least what we say, generally a little bit more. So we test everything to make sure that you're getting exactly what you paid for, but generally more than what you paid for. And that's what I mean, quality wise.
And I remember in my notes, I have it too. I put down specifically, and this is something that you wanted to talk about, how it's a modality for more positive thinking or more positive thoughts.
Sure. So that was kind of my journey. Is again, I didn't really notice anything that was happening. I noticed after the fact. It started turning down the noise in my head so I could have more positive self-talk, so I could actually do something with my life. That helped me figure out oh, maybe I do want to start in the CBD industry. Maybe this is a good thing to help veterans, to help eliminate veteran suicide. My dad is a veteran who took his own life. We have 22 veterans who take their lives every single day. Our mission at Naked Warrior Recovery is to eliminate veteran suicide 22-0. That's the real pandemic epidemic that we have in America. I can't even imagine what it is in law enforcement, with how rickety and how demonized the police officers are on the media and social media. I could not do that job. I could not do that job. And I appreciate every first responder out there, because they do something that I just absolutely could not do. Lots of people say they couldn't do what I used to do. I think everybody could do it, but I absolutely could not do what police officers and other first responders have to put up with today on a daily basis. So keeping that in mind, I think everyone should, learn how to go out and shoot guns and be very safe with guns. And if you need to use it, you can, you will, you should. You should know how to protect yourself, how to defend yourself, whether with a weapon, without a weapon, in any way. You should go out and work out. You should become strong, men and women, everyone. I believe that working out is a gateway drug. Exercise is a gateway drug. Because you're judged on your appearance. When you walk into a room, people are immediately judging you. They're judging you how you're dressed. They're judging you on your physical presence. They judge you on how you speak. If you show up and you're out of shape and your clothes are all disheveled, people are automatically going to put you at the bottom of their list of people who they think they can depend on. Are you a protector? Are you a provider? If you're talking about women, they want someone who is strong, someone who has their shit together. If you're working out, you at least you demonstrate to me that you have discipline to take care of yourself, how to eat right, how to follow a routine and go to the gym. Routine is the key to success. Not getting sucked into scrolling your phone. I'm no different than anyone else. I can get sucked into scrolling my phone too, especially when I get a bunch of hate comments, because I want to reply to them and kill them with kindness. But it's also an interesting swath of America. How are you so bored and you want to put so much effort into commenting on something you don't know anything about? But keep driving the algorithm. I appreciate it. But working out will be the first step to having more positive self-talk. Stop drinking alcohol. Stop doing drugs. Stop watching porn. If you let it slip in, it will start to control your life. You have to be in charge of your life. You have to be the fucking CEO of your life. You have to control everything that you do. You have to be a control freak. And when you're a control freak, nobody can stop you. You're fucking unstoppable.
In terms of, and this is related to the CBD area of conversation, in terms of why you specifically put THC free every single time, THC free next to CBD. Was there any reason that you chose CBD only instead of with a little bit of THC? Because I hear that sometimes people will need a little bit of THC to activate it, or it's better, or there's differences. But why do you prefer CBD without THC?
There's a couple reasons. So number one, you do not need THC in your CBD. That is a marketing message. It's marketing. So, but I don't think that THC is bad. However, society still considers THC bad. I'm a child of Nancy Reagan's War on Drugs, Just Say No. I was terrified to try CBD in the first place. Terrified. I remember these commercials when I was a kid, and it was a frying pan, and it said, "This is drugs." And they cracked an egg and dropped it in the frying pan. "This is your brain on drugs." And I'm like, that still is etched into my memory for the rest of my life. Very effective communication there. Accurate to a point, not completely accurate. Actually, Huberman has made comments on his podcast about CBD and THC or CBD and THC and using them, and he said some very inaccurate things. So I'll probably do a podcast on my own show debunking Huberman and what he said about CBD. But so CBD, I'm sorry, THC is still a Schedule 1 drug, I believe, according to the FDA or the DEA or whoever makes those schedules. So there's a tremendous amount of people, from truck drivers to people with security clearances to even people in even the restaurant industry. They test their people for different kind of drugs, and THC is one of those drugs. So I wanted to give people an option, a high quality option to take CBD that didn't have THC in it. So if there's veterans or retired folk or whatever or people who are still actively engaged in service, in government service, give them an option to take CBD without them popping positive on a urinalysis, on a drug test. So I do have some products that do have some THC in them. It's a low dose of THC, and I think that's fine. But I also want people to know that you have options over here that you're not going to pop positive on a drug test. I still maintain a top secret clearance. I was getting drug tested until about 11 months ago, 10 months ago, and I take a tremendous amount of CBD, my own product, and never had any issues with drug testing. I also did my own testing, but it was just really to give people another option to have a non-CBD product. And I guess the other thing that I was trying to get around to is there's 3 different kinds of CBD out there, 3 main categories. There's CBD isolate, which is just the isolated molecule of CBD. When it's isolated, it becomes a white powder. People just throw it into an olive oil or an MCT oil and they sell it. And you can tell that that's an isolate because it has 10,000 milligrams of CBD or 50,000 milligrams of CBD. Your body can only handle a certain amount of CBD. Why is CBD okay, let me talk about why CBD is important, then I'll come back to the next kinds. So everyone's body has what's called an endocannabinoid system. The endocannabinoid system is a neuroreceptor system that's connected to every other system in your body. And what happens, why we have chronic inflammation or chronic disease, things like that, the endocannabinoid system gets out of whack. It gets out of balance. And so CBD actually helps bring your endocannabinoid system back into balance, because scientists figured out back in the 90s that we have this endocannabinoid system by putting a radioactive isotope on a THC molecule and putting it in the human body to see where it goes and see what it does, to figure out what's going on. Why is THC so effective? Well, they found this whole system that uses cannabis-like molecules, and they also found that we create 2 cannabis molecules in our own body. One is called anandamide, which is associated with the runner's high, which help with the upregulation of serotonin and things like that. And the other one is 2-AG. I forgot what 2-AG stands for, but both of those molecules feed the endocannabinoid system. But we don't make enough of them to keep the system running at its optimal level, based off the environment's, smog and the shit in our water and the shit that we put in our mouth, and all that stuff affects our body and brings us out of whack. And so CBD helps bring everything back into balance. It makes it seem like it's some sort of panacea cure-all. It's not a cure-all at all. It's just a modality. It's a tool in your toolbox. And so there's 3 different kinds. I just talked about CBD isolate. There's full spectrum, which has all the minor cannabinoids and terpenes. Terpenes are essential oils. Cannabinoids are the cannabis-like molecules, CBD, THC, CBN, CBG, those sort of things that are medicinal to the body, a full spectrum product, and then there's a broad spectrum product. So most of my products are broad spectrum products where they still maintain most of the minor cannabinoids and terpenes, but we remove that molecule THC specifically because people may not want to put that in their body. It's a very long answer to a short question.
And it's a completely good answer. It's a completely accurate, valid, and great answer. But now this is so it seems like you gained a lot from CBD oil and cannabinoids, or generally speaking, more specifically CBD. And yesterday, or last week, I should say, yesterday I uploaded it, but I interviewed somebody actually in the cannabis industry who studies how to make different strains of marijuana for different people with different illnesses, right? So you would, like, with different cannabinoids and stuff, have you ever looked into other cannabinoids? Like, for example, he's a big proponent of CBN for his sleep, right? Have you ever looked into maybe selling that? Do you sell that? Or, like, what are your thoughts on things such as that, or even THC as a therapy?
Yeah, so I do sell a product I sell two products actually that have CBN in them, and they're specifically designed for sleep. So it's a soft gel, little CBD capsule that has CBD oil, some MCT oil in there. It also has 3 milligrams of CBN. CBN is the sedative molecule. In case people don't watch that or listen to the interview that you did with the other person, CBN is the sedative molecule. So really, what CBN is stale THC. It's oxidized THC. So and it basically what it helps is it helps to kind of slow everything down. And then there's 3 milligrams of melatonin in there as well. It's a very effective product. I actually, occasionally I get a little carried away. I get excited. Maybe something triggers me and I get super pissed off. And I'll actually use that sleep product just to calm myself back down. It's not going to put me to sleep necessarily, but it'll like put me in a calmer state so I can have more positive self-talk, so I can have more so I can respond to whatever that trigger is rather than to react. So I use it in the daytime, but I also use it at night because I have, like, my brain just doesn't turn off sometimes, a lot of times, most of the time. And that's where I would use alcohol to sort of turn things down or numb things out. And so, my evening routine is generally just, prior to CBD, and in a minute I'll talk a little bit about some THC products. But before the sleep product, before we came out with it, if I didn't go to bed when I got tired, then I would catch that second wind and I would be up till 1 or 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning because I caught my second wind and I'm off to the races. And now I can't go to sleep. I got an early day tomorrow. Oh my God. Oh, let me have a glass of booze and maybe another glass and another glass. And I'm like, why is this not working? Why am I not slowing down? And then pretty soon I'm hammered, and it's a bad cycle. And so what this product did for me is when I would hit that tired point and I would try to push through it and do something else, I would never recover from that tired point. And eventually I'd go to bed like I'm supposed to. Now, I have a couple of gummies that have a little more THC in them. So I have a gummy that has that same kind of CBD, CBN, melatonin formulation, but it also has 1 milligram of THC. I don't feel any THC, any kind of buzz or anything when I take it. Some people do. Some people get a little loopy if they have a very low tolerance. I apparently don't have a very low tolerance. But I do have some gummies. I call them the buzzing gummies. There's 5 milligrams of THC. If you were getting drug tested, I would not take them. But I only take them at night. After I eat dinner, I'll take one. It kicks in about an hour. You feel like booze. But you feel like you've been drinking. And when I'm trying to have a conversation and I'm processing just fine, but when I can't like get my thoughts out of my mouth, I know it's time to go to bed. So I'm like, okay, check. And I'll lay down and I'll be extremely heavy. Like I can't get up. Like Velcro is holding me to the bed, which is awesome. I don't feel fidgety. I don't feel anything else. I just need to be still and lay down and go to sleep. And then I wake up the next morning and I feel awesome.
I have heard that when you go to sleep with CBD in your system, you do tend to feel a little bit groggy. Is that true?
It could be for some people. It does not for me. I sleep right at almost every night, 6.5 hours. That's like my sweet spot. It's when I get up. And there's most people's circadian rhythm works in like a 90-minute cycle, or their sleep cycle. It's a 90-minute cycle. And so I usually get up between 5:30 and 6. It's not a hard time when I get up, but I almost never, even the weekends, sleep in past 6:30. And it all varies based on the time I go to bed. So I try to go to bed by 9 o'clock every night. And then roll from there. So that usually puts me up. But if I'm staying up later, I might sleep in until 6:30.
This is something I've actually wanted to ask. Another question I wanted to ask another SEAL, and it is, I don't know if you're familiar with Casey Neistat, the YouTuber, correct?
Say that again.
Casey Neistat, the YouTuber.
No.
Okay. Well, there was a video on his channel, and a bunch of other YouTubers spoke about it. But it was this rumor, or not really rumor. I would call it a rumor. But it was circulating where a lot of people spoke about something about Navy SEALs waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning and why they do it, or 4 or 5 in the morning and like super duper early, and why they do it. I don't know if you've heard about it. I don't know if it's a myth. What are your thoughts on the idea of like Navy SEALs like waking up at 4 in the morning? Is that true? Or
I think Jocko is one of the few that actually does that. I think he puts his money where his mouth is. I think he actually absolutely does what he says he does. He's a big influencer out there, but it's not specific to Navy SEAL. I know lots of people who get up at 4 in the morning. I don't see any reason for me to get up at 4 in the morning. Maybe I should, but it's not something that I want to do right now, so I'm not going to do it. I'll do the things I want to do. But there's value in doing that. There's value getting up and start attacking your goals for the day early on. Get up. I've got a buddy, he gets up at 5 every day, and the first thing he does in the morning, he does an ice bath. He's like, it's the hardest thing I do all day, getting up and getting in that ice bath. And then I follow it up with a sauna. But I get up and I get in that ice bath at 5 a.m., 5:05. And he said, you know what? I used to make excuses and stand around and like check my email and check social media. And I'd be standing there for an hour and a half. I still got to get in that ice bath. So he's like, you know what? I just decided one day, he already made the conscious effort to get up at 5 a.m. every day, no matter what time zone he's in, unless he's out doing the project, while that's going on, while we're doing that. But he's like, every other day, if I'm home, I get up at 5, I get in that ice bath, and it sucks. It's the hardest thing I do all day. So it doesn't matter what happens the rest of the day. I've already done the hardest thing I could possibly do. So the rest of the day is going to be easy. It doesn't matter what anyone throws at me, what business decisions, what shit goes wrong. I've already done the hardest thing of the day, which is putting my body in that 38 degrees. First thing in the morning. So, yes, some people do get up at 4 a.m. It's not specific to SEALs. I don't know anybody when I was in the teams on a regular basis got up at 4 a.m. I know guys got up at 5, but not 4 a.m. and showed up to work out. I think it's much more of a thing now on the civilian side than it was in the actual SEAL teams.
Yeah, for me, for example, I remember for a while, especially last year, I would wake up at around 5 in the morning, and I would go to my local YMCA and I would work out, right? And then I would go through my day, and eventually I would go to practice after school for wrestling, back when I was still doing that. And I tried it again, like where I would wake up super early, and I'm like, this is really exhausting me throughout the day. Like, there's no point to me just to feel like this super tired throughout the day. I'm not really accomplishing that much more. But I originally did it because I felt more accomplished, right? In terms of like waking up early and working out. So in terms of like how my body felt, that's why I personally stopped doing it. So generally speaking, it's a person-to-person basis from what I'm getting from you.
Yeah, 100%. And like the amount of time that you need to sleep. I was at an event a few weeks ago in San Diego, and the CEO of the company has done a bunch of, he's in the tech world, he's in the biohacking world, he does all this other stuff. and he's a very smart guy. And he went and did this sort of brain scan thing, and they were like, okay, we can tell that you're one of the few people that can work and thrive on 4.5 hours of sleep a night. You can perform at the highest levels. Other people are 6 hours. Other people are 8 hours. Everyone is different. But what's important is going to bed at the same time every night, getting up at the same time in the morning, making sure that your body has the amount of recovery that it needs. I wear a Whoop and an Apple Watch on the same wrist because I like tracking that stuff. Even if my recovery looks like shit, I'm still going to go out and work out the way that I feel like I need to work out. I don't use that as a metric of how hard I'm going to work out of the day. I'm going to work out how hard I want to work out that day. Like if I have a wrong run scheduled for the day, even if my recovery is super low, I'm still going to go do that long run. But I want to see how, I like tracking sleep. I like tracking recovery. I like tracking how much work I've done throughout the day. That's the other part of tracking that stuff. I want to know if I'm slacking off or not on my workouts. And I can figure that out pretty quickly.
So switching gears from working out and in CBD and biology, right? So looking towards the future and in regards to a conversation that I had with Stephen Giblin, what do you believe your purpose to be, at least right now?
My purpose?
Yep.
My purpose is to share the knowledge that I've acquired through my time in the SEAL teams with as many people as possible. I see society going the opposite direction that I think it should go. So I believe it's my duty as a man, as a warrior, as someone who has overcome extreme adversity in my life, someone who was poor white trash once upon a time. Now I'm successful because I put my mind to it, to share my story, to share my lessons, to share my successes, to share my failures with as many people as possible and give them the key to success. Because if you look at the world stage right now and the way the media and the powers to be drive us, they want us to be mediocre. I think you should kill mediocrity every single day. And you do that by competing against yourself, competing in kindness, competing in gratitude, competing in generosity, compete against your ego. Killing mediocrity is the single hardest thing to do when faced with society. My mission is to go out there and help other people kill mediocrity. Help other people become the best version of themselves. Help people make as much money as they possibly can. Help people thrive. Help people to think independently. That's my mission.
And while we're on the topic of society and messages to be shared, it's another question. I don't know if you saw it, but what would you like to say to any future or current politicians, people in government, any changes you'd like to see, especially within the government or in society, especially with regards to military veterans or personnel?
Actually, what I would do if I were, let's say, if I were king for the day, I would get rid of every single law that we have on the books and go back to the Bill of Rights and the Constitution and start over. I would get rid of 95% of the government that we have in place and start over. Because the government has become too big. That's not what this country was founded on. We're founded on small government, for the people, by the people, of the people. And so get rid of all the BS that's in there, all the bureaucracy. Some of it is good, but let's go back and make new laws that support the good things and get rid of the laws that don't support the good things, that don't support the American way of life. As far as veterans go, if I couldn't be king of the world and do that one thing, then I would say take care of your people. I talked to a guy a couple of days ago who was injured in the line of duty. His buddy, he stepped on a landmine in Afghanistan. His first sergeant pulled him off of the landmine while his buddy threw his body on the landmine. The guy's got shrapnel. He's pretty mentally fucked up. And the Marine Corps just medically discharged him. They did not medically retire him. By not medically retiring him, he gets no benefits. He gets nothing from the VA. He gets no disability. He gets no nothing. They basically said, thanks for coming, sucker, and get out. I would have the government take care of your fucking people. They came over, they served, they sacrificed. Many have died. They've lost friends, they've lost loved ones. Take care of them. And sometimes it's not the traditional, most of the time, it's not the traditional way of taking care of people. There are a lot of modalities out there to help people with the baggage and the nonsense and all the noise they have in their head that's illegal in the United States, where they have to leave the country to go get treatment. How about bring some of that treatment to the United States and take care of your people? That would be my message.
And this would be my final question, which is, what would you like to say to anybody in the audience, and what message would you like people to hear?
I would say go out and do hard things. A lot of what I've already said, go out and do hard things. Go out and push yourself. Go out and challenge yourself. Stop settling for the status quo. If you're doing what everyone else is doing, you're not going to get anywhere. If you go out there and you do something completely opposite, completely random, completely off the wall, where people question you or people criticize you for doing that, then you're probably doing the right thing. So go out there, challenge the status quo, destroy the status quo, kill your mediocrity, keep pushing the boundaries that you have, that you think you have, these mental boundaries, and go create something awesome for the world.
Will do. Will do. Thank you for coming on, Mr. Branum. All right, I want to talk to you a little bit after the show.
Yes, sir.
But I really appreciated you coming on. You inspired me. I feel like I want to run up a mountain now.
Let's go. Yeah, let's do it.
I appreciate you coming on. So like I said, I'll just talk to you a little bit after the show. And yeah, any last words or statements?
No, I think that's it. I think we'll chat after the show, and thanks for having me on here.
All right, sounds good. All right, I'm going to hit stop recording. All right.